All right, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and take it away then. So, as you maybe have seen already in the agenda, and again, the link to the agenda is in the chat. Today, we are going to be talking about Canvas organization and content. And in particular, that falls into kind of two categories. The first category is talking about how to create interactive, media rich content within Canvas. And today, we're mostly going to be looking at how to create pages. But as we do that, I'll point out a couple of ideas for how to make assignments more engaging, quizzes more engaging, things like that. After we talk about building content, we're then going to talk about how to organize that content and make sure that it's as accessible as possible for our students, whoever they are. So I'm going to just share my screen to point out a couple of elements in this agenda, just so that you have a really clear idea of how I'm planning on budgeting our time today. Now, we've already accomplished these first two things. I wanted to get through those quickly, and I think I did an okay job. But our next step is, like I mentioned before, creating media-rich pages and assignments. Now, within that, we're going to build a page together. So just like last week, if you want to follow along and build with me, today you're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that. And we can get you information on how to get signed in and everything else if you need it. But once we get into Canvas, we're going to create a page or an assignment, I'll leave that up to you, that has images inside of it, that has icons or buttons inside of it, that has embedded videos and content, and that also has embedded Google Docs or Google Slides presentations, whatever you're working with in Google. That's going to take probably about the first 30 to 40 minutes. That's going to be a big chunk of our time today. After that, though, we're going to kind of switch gears and we're going to start talking about organization inside of Canvas. And I want to frame that conversation around UDL and accessibility. If you aren't familiar with UDL and accessibility, you are not going to get a full class on it today. I am just going to give you a really quick summary because some of the ideas that I bring up today are going to tie back to those components. And again, you might already be familiar with those, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I do want to just touch on that before we start talking about organization. And then after we touch on that, we'll talk about Canvas modules and how to adjust module settings to accomplish various goals depending on what you're doing in your classroom. Now, that is our agenda for today, but I do also want to take a minute to make sure that everyone can get signed into Canvas. And Alex, thank you so much for dropping the link to the Adult Ed instance of Canvas into our chat. So if you need that link, you can access it in the chat. But again, take just a moment here to get signed into Canvas if you haven't already. While you're getting signed in, I'm going to sign in as well, and then we'll start building together. And just as a quick reminder, I do try to check the chat every now and then. I do try to pause for questions every now and then, but just know that I'm not quite a master of monitoring the chat quite yet. So you are always welcome to come off of mute and just interrupt me if you have a question, or you can wait until I pause or I see it in the chat. I promise I will get there eventually, just not always super fast. So keep that in mind today. Now, if we don't have any big questions or concerns before we get going, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the course that I'm working in. And then we'll start building this page that I mentioned before. So very first off, I want to just reintroduce you to this course that we're working in. This is the same sample course that I showed you last time. This course doesn't really have too much content in it. It has a little bit, but not much. It doesn't have any students in it. This is what I'm going to use to build today. But as a quick reminder, most of our courses probably look something a little bit more like this once they're fully developed, where they have a home page with maybe images, maybe some buttons, things like that. Now, creating pages that are a little bit more in depth and look somewhat like this is kind of our goal today and what we're going to be aiming for. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to create really refined content today, but I do want you to keep in mind what type of media you are interested in integrating into your course so that as you start building things today, maybe you can build something that applies to you. Now, I'm going to go back to my demo course so that I can start building. And I'm going to start by going to pages, and I'm going to create a page today. You are welcome to create a page with me, or it will be pretty easy to follow along if you want to create an assignment as well. Either one of those should be a pretty good option for you. Like I said before, though, I'm going to go to pages. And this is the page that we created together last week. It's pretty simple, but I'm going to just start over today and create a new one. So I'll go to view all pages in the upper left-hand corner, and then I'll click on plus page. And I'm just going to call this September 4th demo. It's going to be the title of my page. Now, last time we met, we talked a little bit about Canvas's rich content editor. And just as a reminder, what the rich content editor is this box that you see right here on my screen. Now, this box is what you will use to build content in pretty much any area of Canvas. So if you're building an assignment, you're going to have this box. If you're creating an announcement, you're going to have this box, so on and so forth. So when I mentioned earlier that you could create an assignment today and it will look pretty much the same, it's because you're going to have the same functionalities in this box. So remember that this box, I'm going to call my rich content editor. Last time we pointed out a couple of the tools that exist along the top of the rich content editor. We're not going to review all of those today, but I do want to start with a tool that we touched on last time just to kind of get you warmed up. And that tool is our image option. So I want you to take a minute and go ahead and add any image that you can to your page. And I'm going to add one into mine, and then we'll talk a little bit about editing those images, but then we'll get into a little bit more depth here and see if we can make our pages more interactive. So all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and add an image to my page. I'm going to go to upload. And then inside of my documents, I have a page or an image that I think will work pretty well. Now you can see the preview for my image here. It's the same image I used last time. And I believe that I touched on alt text last time, but just in case I didn't, what alt text is it's just a text description of a photo for people who use a screen reader. So if you have someone who is visually impaired in your course, they rely on alt text to understand the images that are embedded in your course. So you just need to provide a brief description there. I'm going to say Ruth Lake in the high Uintas. And of course, if this was an actual course, I might add a little bit more detail than that, but that will work for today. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And hopefully at this point, you've been able to add an image to your own course, or you're well on your way to adding an image to your own course. But you can see that that image is now on my page. Now, if I click on that image, I have these image options, and I can adjust my image as needed. So I can set my size to one of these preset sizes that exist inside of Canvas, or I can put in a custom size. By default, Canvas is going to allow you to adjust the size of your image using pixels. If you're not familiar with pixels, they're just a way to measure space on computer screens, essentially. But you can also adjust the dimensions of your image using a percentage. So in this case, I'm going to say that I want my image to occupy 20% of the width of my page, and then I'm going to hit done. And you're going to see that now it takes up 20% of my page. Now, you don't need to necessarily save and publish your page at this point, but I do want to just save for just a moment so that I can illustrate why that percentage thing matters and how it will become helpful for us moving forward. So I'm going to hit save here. And you can see that I have this preview of my page. I have my little image. But the thing that I want to highlight is I can make my screen smaller. And as I make my screen smaller, that image automatically adjusts its size because it's a percentage. So this is valuable to you in that sometimes when we add media or content to pages, that media can be pretty large. And when it's too large, it can be kind of cumbersome for people to see if they're on a phone or on a tablet. So if you want to make your content as accessible as possible to a variety of devices, I typically recommend using percentages. Now, there might be some instances where you don't want to use a percentage. Like if an image needs to be a really specific size, then obviously you should use pixels. But generally speaking, percentages are a good way to go. And so today, as we talk about embedding media, I'm mostly going to be using percentages. Now, I do want to pause here for just a moment to give you space to ask any questions that you might have. Is there anything that I can respond to before I continue moving forward today?
It's too much for me to carry on my own. I shared it. I shared it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll be able to respond that way in just a moment. Now, at this point, we've added our image, and I want to move on to the rest of our list. So you can see the first thing that we had was adding an image, but the next items are a little bit more advanced. They're not crazy advanced, but they do go into more depth. And the first one is to add an icon or a button to your page. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit enter next to my image. And I'm actually going to put that line break in above my image today, just so that I have space to add in some sort of icon or button. Now, the tool that we are going to be using is going to be right here in Canvas. And once I hover over it, you'll be able to see that it says Icon Maker. And it's the one with the circle and the triangle and the square. That's what we're looking for. So go ahead and click on that. And then today we're going to create an icon. So we're going to click on Create Icon, Maker Icon. Now, I want to say before we get too far into this, this is a relatively new feature from Canvas. It's not brand new, but it's relatively new. And it's still being added to and developing. So keep your expectations relatively low here. You can't make anything in the world, but you do have some options for creating little icons that you can use in your course. So I'm going to say that I want to create maybe an icon for assignments. So I'm going to say this is going to be my assignments icon. And then again, because we are going to be creating an image of some sort, we should add alt text. And for this, because the whole function of this image is just essentially a button that students can click on, I'll just name it whatever they're going to, which is assignments. Below that, I can choose the shape that I want for my icon. And you can see that you have a bunch of them. Today, I'm going to just use a circle because that's relatively easy. I want my icon to be small. And then I can choose the color for my icon. So if I click on this dropdown, I have some color options that I can choose from. Again, they're not unlimited color options, but I have a couple. And I'll just say that I'm going to work with blue today. So now as soon as I've selected that color, you can see my blue circle appears, and I'm beginning to build this icon. Now I can also choose if I want an outline for my icon. Today I'm not going to include one, but you can if you want to. And then right below that, I can choose to add text to my icon if I want. And then I can also add an image to my icon. Those are the two options of things that we can add. Now, I'm going to add text for the time being so that you can see what it looks like, but I'm going to remove it at the end before I build my icon. So I'm just going to say assignments here. And again, you can title yours whatever you want to title yours. You can adjust the text size as needed, the text color as needed. And if you want to add a background color to your text, you're welcome to do that as well. You can also choose the position. So do I want it below? Do I want it in the middle of my icon? Do I want it on the bottom third of my icon? Today, I'm going to just put mine below. And then finally, probably the most important part is that we can also add an image to this icon as well. Now, once I click on add image here, you're going to see that I have a couple of options. One option is to upload an image, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. For the time being, though, I want to go ahead and select a single color image. And you'll see that I have roughly, what is this, like 15, 16 images to choose from that Canvas already has preloaded in their system. Again, not a lot, but you have a couple to get started with. Now, because this is my assignments icon, maybe I'm going to say I want these math icons. And so when I click on that, you can see that they've been added to my little circle there. And then I can come down here and I can change the color of that icon that I've added within my circle. So I'm going to change that to white to make it a little bit easier to see. And now I've built this little icon that I can use as a button inside of my class. Now, again, there are a couple more options that you can add and toy with within this little icon maker. But the main one that I want to point out, just for the time being, is that add image option. So again, if I click on add image, like I mentioned before, I do have the option to upload an image, and I can choose any image that's saved to my computer to be put into the middle of that circle. Now, as you saw before, Canvas is just going to put that image right into that circle. And with most images, Canvas is not going to be able to change the color of that image like I did before. The only reason I was able to change my color is because I chose one of the pre-loaded images in Canvas. So bear those things in mind. However, with that said, if you have maybe like a little clip art image that's already black or white or whatever you need, and you feel like it would go really well in the circle and you're not really worried about changing colors and things like that, then the upload image option is a really good option for you to embed that image inside of your icon. Today, though, I'm just going to re-add my really simple preloaded one here. I'm going to change it to white again. And like I mentioned before, oops, I changed the text color, not the icon color. Let me go back. I need to come down here. Now, like I mentioned before, I am interested in taking my text off today, just to make my design a little bit simpler. So I'm going to go ahead and delete where it says assignments here. You can see that my image responds. And then whenever I'm ready, whenever my image is done, I can go ahead and hit apply. And Canvas is going to put that icon right into my page wherever my cursor was. And so again, I can click on this. And now I have my edit icon options and my icon options. And icon options really is just alt text. But what you can do is if you do want to make any changes to your icon, you can click on your edit icon. Now, the way that this can become helpful for you in designing your courses is these images can now start to function as buttons for your course to make it a little bit more interactive for students. Right now, though, as you can see, if I save this and I hover over that image, nothing happens. It's not a button yet. The way I'm going to make that a button is if I go back into my page, I can now select that icon, and then I can select my link icon and choose external link or course link. Again, an external link is anything outside of Canvas. Course link is anything inside of Canvas. I can choose whatever option works best for me. And then I can copy and paste the link into there. So I'm going to go back to UEN's page. I'm going to copy the link to UEN's page. And then I'm going to put that link right into my page right there. And you can see that it highlights, and now I have some more options when I click on that button, mostly my link options. Now, once I save that, if I now hover over that icon, you can see that I have the ability to now click on that, which would then open up the page that I linked to. And so you can use those icons as buttons to make your page a little bit more interactive. Now, beyond adding some of those buttons, you can see that our next step is to embed a YouTube video. And this is where your content becomes really powerful for students because now they don't need to navigate from point A to point B within your course. They can just have the content that they need right on the page that they're looking at. So I'm going to, again, edit my page a little bit more. Um, and I'm going to hit enter again and just add another element. But the element that I want to add today is going to be a YouTube video, like I mentioned before. And in particular, I'm actually going to add a whole YouTube playlist. Now, before I do that, I'm going to give you a minute to navigate so that you can navigate to YouTube yourself. And find some video that you can add to your page. It doesn't need to be the best video in the world right now, but just some video that you can use. So take a second to go to YouTube, find a video, and then I'll show you how to embed that in just a second. As we are navigating there, though, this is another really good opportunity to ask questions. So what questions can I respond to as people are finding YouTube videos that they might be able to use inside of their course? See something in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, can you please repeat how to add a link to the button? Absolutely, not a big deal. So if you look at my button here on my page, all I need to do to add a link, and I'm going to remove the link so I can show you again, is I click on the image, and then you should see like this blue box appear around your button. Once that blue box appears, you can then click on this little link icon that's at the top of the rich content editor. And once you've clicked on that, you have the external link and course link options. Typically, we're using external links because those link to outside of Canvas. And then once I click on that, there will be a space for my link. I can then copy and paste my link into that box and hit done. And as soon as I've hit done, that link will now be embedded inside of that icon. So hopefully that helps. Perfect. Glad that worked for you. Are there any other questions I can respond to here? All right, cool. Let's talk about how to embed these YouTube videos then. So hopefully at this point, you have found a YouTube video that you can work with. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to use a YouTube playlist. And the playlist that I am using is a playlist that was created by one of my colleagues. Her name is Val O'Brien. She covers most of the Canvas content for UEN. So if you've worked with UEN and Canvas before, you might recognize her. But I'm going to use her playlist today to demonstrate how I might embed something onto a page from YouTube. Now, I'm going to do this twice. The first way I'm going to do this is embedding a particular video. And then the second way I'm going to do it is embedding the entire playlist so that you can see both sides of it. Now, I'm going to begin by just opening up this video that Val has created here, this top one in the playlist. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. And then importantly, YouTube has the share button at the bottom. So once I click on the share button, I get a couple of options. The option that we want today is this embed option. So I'm going to go back so you can see what I clicked on. I clicked on share and then embed right here. And then after I click on embed, this window pops up and you can see the video right here and then a bunch of code right next to the video. Now this code is the embed code that you need for Canvas. So all you need to do at this point is click on copy and then you can go back into your Canvas page and you're going to look for this little cloud icon that exists in the rich content editor. Now, if your screen is smaller than mine, you might have these three dots at the end of your list. You need to click on those three dots first to see all of your options. But once you click on those three dots, you should be able to access your little cloud. Now, once you've clicked on that little cloud icon, you're going to get a box that asks for your embed code, and then you can go ahead and just paste that embed code right into that box and hit submit. Once you've done that, you'll see that that video then appears inside of your Canvas page. And if I save this, what you can see is that now that video is just right here in Canvas, and students don't need to leave Canvas to access it. What that means for you and your students is that now students aren't getting distracted with like, I'm going to read some content and then I have to go to a different website and then I have to come back to Canvas. It makes the learning experience a little bit more seamless this way, and they can just play the video right inside of that Canvas page. Now, as promised, I want to also show you how to add a playlist too. So if you have a series of videos that you want students to watch, you can embed that series as well. So if I go back to where I had Val's videos, you can see that I have this playlist here with all of these videos. Now I'm looking for the same option as I had before, which is my share option. It has the same icon as that video option. And if I click on share, I then get the same sharing options. And so again, I'll go to embed and I'll copy that embed code. And then I can go into Canvas and just repeat the same steps. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, go to my little cloud. I'm going to paste in that embed code right here and hit submit. And now you can see that I have that entire playlist now embedded inside of Canvas. Now, it looks very similar when we embed a playlist as opposed to a YouTube video. But the way I can tell that I'm looking at a playlist is right up here. I have this little 1 out of 8 icon, which indicates that right now it's showing the first video out of a series of 8. And if I click on that, you'll be able to see that I have all of the videos in the playlist added right here, and students can scroll through those and choose those. But maybe most importantly, what will happen with a playlist is, let's say a student just hits play, they don't click on any of that, they just hit the play button, they watch the entire video. At the end of that video, instead of getting one of YouTube's suggested videos, YouTube is going to automatically just bump them to the next video in the playlist. And that's kind of the functionality difference between those. Now, that's a really quick overview of how to embed a video. Are there any questions or concerns that I can respond to before I talk about how to maybe resize that video or embed other content? All right, perfect. Well, let's go back into our pages then. At this point, hopefully you've been able to embed a video. If not, that's okay. Continue to follow along. But there's one other thing that I wanted to point out to you that might be helpful. So with this video, you can see that by default, YouTube just said that it should be this size. I didn't get to choose how big that was. I didn't get to set my preferences at all, but I do still have the ability to edit that. Now, this editing process isn't quite as easy as editing an image. You may remember that with an image, all I really have to do is click on it and then select image options, and then I can say how big I want my image to be. For videos, I need to actually go into the HTML code that's inside of my Canvas page. So if you are someone who is a little wary of tech tools, you don't like technology, close your eyes for a minute. This might get scary, but I promise it's not actually that complicated. So in my rich content editor at the bottom, you can see that I have a few options right here. We aren't going to go into all of those options today, but I do want to highlight this one. So I have those like greater than and less than signs with a slash in the middle. If I click on that, it pulls up all of the code for my page. Now, I'm not going to go into a full lesson on HTML and how to program websites today, but I do want to just point out one thing in particular that's going to give you a little bit more power in designing your course. And that one thing is this iframe code right here. Now, what an iframe is that is the code that is used to embed things on websites. So if you are embedding something, just like we did where you copied and pasted that embed code into Canvas, that is probably using an iframe. There are a couple of other things that it could be, but most likely it's going to be an iframe. So all you need to do now is you are going to look for somewhere in your code that says iframe. And then after that, you're going to see that the iframe is probably named, and it's probably, in this case, YouTube video player. Right after that, it's going to have an abbreviation for source, and then it's going to have the link to the video or playlist that you used. That's what comes next. But then right after that, you're going to see that it says width and height. And so if I really wanted to adjust how big this video appeared on my screen, I can do that by just typing in new numbers here. Now, by default, Canvas is going to work with pixels. So right now, my video is 560 pixels by 315 pixels, but I can adjust that to percentages simply by using a percentage sign. So if I want this video to take up 100% of the width of my screen, I'll just type in 100% within those quotation marks. And then I can also set the height to whatever I want it to be. I'm going to just say that for right now, it's going to be 400 pixels, and we'll call that fine. Once I close out of here, though, you'll be able to see that that video playlist got a lot bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. And it is now going to be much wider than it was before. Now, you're probably saying that doesn't look like 100% of your screen, and it's not, because I'm actually using another software in the background right now that's controlling the size of this so that I don't make things too big inside of my Canvas course. But if I go back in, I can actually turn that off. And once I turn that off, you'll be able to see that it's going to actually go all the way to the edge of my screen and occupy that 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove a little bit of the code here. Hit save again. And it doesn't want to refresh for me. So I'm going to make you take my word for it. But you can see that I have these like blue bars, and that blue bar is controlling my width. That probably doesn't exist in your Canvas instance, though, because that's something that we've added specifically to UENs. So within that blue bar, you can see that the video now goes to 100% of the width inside of that container. But for you, it should just be 100% all the way to the edge. Now, again, I know that messing with the code probably isn't your favorite thing to do. Most of the time, people don't love it when I go into the code. So thank you for bearing with me. But if you are someone who is really interested in customizing your Canvas content, that's a really good way to go about it. Now I'm going to pause again for questions at this point, and then we'll try embedding a couple of other things. What questions can I respond to here? All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and try embedding a couple of other things, and then we'll move on to how we organize our content once it's been created. So right now, um, as you've probably seen, I have this really chaotic, messy page, right? Like this hopefully isn't how we're actually designing pages in Canvas, but hopefully this gave you some of the tools so that you can make your pages more interactive. If I was actually designing this page right now, chances are I probably don't need just a nature photo in my page. I might need an icon, and I might need a video. I might have some text above this video, but again, you can figure out how you want to space and arrange things based on your needs. That said, I want to give you the tools to be able to embed a couple of other things, and then we'll talk about how that might apply to your content and where you might organize that content. So I am once again going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom. And actually, I'm going to begin by deleting a couple of things to make this a little bit less messy. Um, so I deleted the big video, but right under that video, I'm going to add in another element. And what I want to do now is I actually want to embed a Google map. So I have Google Maps pulled up. You can follow along with me here if you want, or you could just watch. But the reason I'm pulling up Google Maps is because, again, I want to highlight that most online tools now have some sort of sharing option. So just like we went to in YouTube and you clicked on share and you got the embed code, most tools online have something really similar to that. Now in Google Maps, the icon doesn't look the same, but I still have a share option. And when I click on share, you can see that I have an option for a link, or I can even embed a map. And so then all I need to do is copy the HTML or copy the code, take that into Canvas, and just repeat the same process where I find my little cloud icon, and then I paste in that code here, hit submit, and now I have a map that is embedded inside of my course. Again, you probably don't need maps. Maybe some of your students need help finding where to find you, but most of them probably do not. The main reason I wanted to demonstrate that was simply to point out the fact that most of the content that you're accessing online probably comes with an embed code that you can use inside of Canvas. And the important part about embedding something is that anything that is embedded remains functional. So in other words, this isn't just a screenshot of that map. I can still use this map. So as you can see, I can drag that around. I can scroll in. Uh, I can use directions inside of Google Maps within my Canvas course. So just keep in mind that whenever you're embedding something, you are maintaining all of the functionality of the thing that is being embedded. And hopefully that makes sense. Yes, I see a question there.
Okay. When you went into Maps, what did you click on to get the code? Because I had copied the link and then it just inserted the link. It didn't actually insert the map.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Let me go back to Maps, and I am actually going to just start here. You're probably looking at something similar to this to begin with. In this search bar, I can search anywhere that I'm interested in. So before I just searched Salt Lake City, but I'm going to do London this time just so that I can use a different map. Um, and then once I've selected something, then I get this pane on the left-hand side. And then I have the share option here. So the step that I kind of skipped over, and I'm glad that you pointed this out and asked this question, is you do need to actually like select something in maps. So maybe I can even do like St. George, Utah. Nothing will happen until I click on that place. But once I click on that place, I get this option on the side, and then I can click on share. And from share, I can click on embed a map. And then I can copy that HTML. Did that answer your question, Rebecca? Okay, perfect. Good. Thank you for asking that because I think that was a really helpful way to clarify that. Now, once you've maybe embedded your map or maybe you've embedded something else, there's one last thing that I want to show you that you can embed. And that last thing is any sort of item that you have saved in Google. And that embed process works really easily in Canvas. You can also embed things that you have saved to Microsoft Office, except the process is a little bit different. And I am not a Microsoft expert. So you're going to have to bear with me as I look up an answer after the session if that might apply to you. That said, I know where the answer is. I can find it really quickly. But hang on to that question if you're using Microsoft. For those of us who are using Google, though, what you're going to do is you're going to find this little plug icon along the top of your rich content editor. Now, once you click on that, you may or may not have some options that pop up. And I think we talked a little bit about the plug icon last time, so you might have some options there, you might not. For right now, let's assume that you don't have any options that pop up. It just says view all. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to click on view all, and then you're going to scroll down to where you see Google Drive, and then in parentheses, LTI 1.3. Now, this gets tricky because you're going to see that there are like two Google Drive icons, one that says Google Apps, one that says Google Drive. Google Apps is Google's old version of this tool. The old version of the tool still sometimes kind of works, but there's a lot of situations where it doesn't work. And so I would highly recommend that you use Google Drive LTI 1.3. Now, once you click on that, it's going to ask you which Google account you want to sign into. And you'll see that previewed here. You have the option to choose a different account if you want to. But for the time being, I'm just going to use my UEN account. Then I'm going to click on Select File. And then in a separate window, it's going to pull up all of the files that are saved to my Google Drive. Now, because of my screen sharing permissions, you're probably not seeing that window because Zoom is preventing you from seeing all of the files in my Google Drive. But once you click on Select File, you should have that window pop up for you. All I'm going to do today, though, is select a file from my Google Drive. And I'm going to click the Add button that appears after I click on that file. Then it's going to ask me whether or not I want to attach that file. And again, apologies that you probably can't see this on your end because it's being blocked by Zoom. But it's basically going to say, do you want to attach this to your course? And you just click on attach there. And then after you've done that, you'll see that your Google Doc or your Google Slides presentation, whatever the case may be, is pulled directly into your course. Now, I'm going to save this so that you can see it a little bit better. But all I pulled in was simply a version of our agenda for today. So you may remember that I showed you this agenda before. It's the same Google Doc. I just selected it and told Canvas that I wanted to embed that on my page here. And so again, you can see that I could scroll through that Google Doc. I can look at everything, and I don't need to exit the page in order to do that. That's just embedded right here inside of the content. Now, I'm going to do that once more, just in case you missed the process. And I also want to highlight what it might look like to add Google Slides presentation, because that's typically what's most helpful for teachers. So I'm going to delete out my Google Doc, and then I'm going to go back to my plug. Now that I've used the Google Drive app, you can see that it appears by default in my list. So I'll go ahead and select that. It's going to ask me which account I want. I select file, and then once I've clicked select file, I can choose a Google Slides presentation from my Google Drive, click on attach. And then it's going to appear right here inside of my page, and students can then navigate through that presentation. So again, I'll save that once more. And then as a student, what I can do is I can just progress through here. And this is a presentation that I'll be giving next week. And that student can see all of the content in my presentation just embedded inside of that page. Jamie, I see your question here. Is there a way to remove the old Google Apps plugin as an option? Not an easy way. I would need to double check on that. There isn't a quick way to remove it though, unfortunately. I think that you can, but I'm not entirely sure what that process looks like, and it might be dependent on the instance that you're using. Yeah, so that's something to maybe send me a follow-up email on. My answer right now is maybe. Are there other questions though that I can respond to with there? Yeah, Rebecca. Oh, sorry.
How are you deleting things? I when I click on it, nothing really happens. Like I've put a couple of slides in here and the window's really tiny, and when I click on it, it doesn't really give me the option to delete it.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you for clarifying that. Let me go back to my page. All I am doing, and this is a good question too, because if I click on this, there's not really anything that I can do with that content, right? It just progresses me forward in the presentation, or it does nothing, as the case may be. All I'm doing is I'm putting my cursor right next to it, so you can see my cursor is flashing there, and then I'm just hitting backspace on my keyboard, and that's how I'm getting rid of it. So you should be able to click next to whatever item you want. Don't click directly on it, but right next to it. And then hit backspace. And that should take care of it for you. Did that work?
I think so. The window is just so small. So like try to see what I'm doing here. Yes, it's definitely deleting some things.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's at least deleting some things. And this is a really good point too. Like this rich content editor that we have to work with is not big. They don't give you a ton of space to visualize all of this, right? I still am kind of befuddled that there isn't like a drag option where I can expand this and make it taller. It is what it is. If Canvas listened to all of my suggestions, I would get paid a lot more than I currently am. But
so you
here we are.
can hit those expand arrows down at the bottom, and that makes it kind of full screen. And
yeah.
then you can work on it that way.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, because that is a really good option. I can full screen it, but there isn't like the middle ground of being able to still have access to these elements with that open. And that's my personal frustration. Sorry to make this my venting session though.
Hey, Braxton, right
yeah.
next to that, the like 8 dots, if you click on that and drag down.
Alex, you are my hero. Oh my goodness. Wow. I love this. Okay. You can drag those dots. Holy cow. You've just changed my life. So Rebecca, thank you for asking that question, because now I have learned a lot too. So thank you for that. And thank you for the clarification. And Alex, thank you for that suggestion. Oh yeah, and that's a good suggestion too, Jamie. You can also rotate your monitor if you're working with various monitors. That's helpful as well. I want to point out just a couple of things about organization here, and then we'll call things a wrap. So I know that we have about 10 minutes left. And at the beginning, I mentioned that we'll talk about content and organization. We spent about 45 minutes on content, so a little bit longer than I anticipated, but not too much longer. I'm going to go ahead and hit save here for the time being, though, because what I want to focus on now is modules. So if you'll go to the module screen here, you'll be able to see that I already have a couple of modules. I'm guessing that you most likely don't have some modules though. And you've maybe used modules before, but I want to talk through some of the options that you have inside of them. Now, first off, if you are brand new to Canvas and you don't know what a module is, you can think of a module essentially as a folder. It's a place where you're going to organize and save some of your content that you've created in Canvas. So in other words, if you've created a handful of assignments or a handful of pages, and you want to organize all of those together, you do that using modules. Now, I have a couple of modules that are already created, like I mentioned before. So if I click on those, I can expand them, and you can see all of the things that are embedded inside of that module. And basically, it's kind of like a list for students to work through. Now, this example is for like a digital breakout where it's essentially kind of like a game that students are playing. And in this digital breakout, they're going on like some sort of secret mission. They're spies of some sort. That's what we're looking at here. All this is, though, just to give you a little bit more context, is this is a page that I created. This is another page. This is a quiz. This is a page, so on and so forth. So it's not that there's anything like terribly exciting in there. I've just simply created my content as if it were a game. Now, how you are going to go about creating your own module is you are going to go to the upper right-hand corner and use this plus module option. Once you click on that, Canvas is going to ask you for a name. Now, many teachers organize their modules by unit, and so you might say Unit 1, punctuation, or whatever the case may be. Or a lot of teachers also organize their modules by periods of time or time frames. So you might say week 1, week 2, week 3, so on and so forth. Today, I'm just going to say Unit 1. I also have the option to lock my module, and that just means that students won't be able to open up this module until a given moment in time, and I can set that date for whatever I want. Today, I'm going to leave it unlocked, though, and I'm going to go ahead and add my module. By default, that appears at the bottom of my screen, but I can drag and drop it to wherever I want that to go inside of my modules list. So if I want that at the top for students, I can drag it and drop it there. Now, because this is a brand new module, it doesn't have any content in it. The easiest way to add content is to go to this plus button that exists right in the upper corner. Once I've clicked on plus, I'm going to get this drop-down menu. Again, that's right here in that window that allows me to select what type of content I want to add to this module. So do I want to add an assignment? Do I want to add a page? So on and so forth. Right now, we'll say that I want to add the page that I just created with all of you. So I'm going to go to Pages, and I'm going to click September 4th Demo, and then I'll click on Add Item. And you can see that that page, excuse me, that page now appears inside of my module. Now, again, I can repeat that process as much as needed. So I can go to that plus button and add assignments. And maybe I add my demo assignment, whatever I want, I can select from my list and add. If I know that I have something that I'm going to want to add, but I haven't built it yet, I can also build things directly from this plus button as well. So I can go to plus, an assignment, and then once I've hit assignment, you can see that at the very top, I have this option to create an assignment. And I could just type in my assignment name and add that assignment directly from the module as well. If I wanted to create and build something that way, that also is an option. For right now, though, I want to highlight this option inside of modules that says text header. And once I click on text header, you'll be able to see that I have this little box that appears. And it's typically easiest for me to explain this simply by demonstrating it. So I'm going to just type in assignments here and hit on add item. Now, once I've done that, you can see that I have this text that appears in my module that I can drag and drop to wherever I need it to go inside of my module, or I should be able to. Let me unclick and publish this. And I'm gonna move things around. Ugh. Maybe I won't move things around. I'll refresh the page. The idea here, though, is that I should be able to move. There we go. That fixed it. I should be able to move that wherever I want. And so now I can start organizing my module in a way that will be helpful for students. So what I might do is I might go in and add another text header. And I might say something like required reading. Add that. And then I might drag that to the top. And now I can add some elements under the required reading, and then I can add some elements under assignments, and that helps students find your content a little bit easier. Now, before I mentioned that we were going to touch on UDL and accessibility. We don't have a ton of time to do that, but I do want to just say that by organizing your modules and having your modules organized in a cohesive way, it makes it a lot easier for students to find and access your content, which is what we want them to be able to do, right? So as you're thinking about your organization, think through how you want students to access your content and try to implement that consistently throughout your course. Another example of that is I can also use naming conventions to make sure that things are named cohesively throughout my entire course. So for instance, when I was teaching in the classroom, I would create units, right? And I'd say, this is our first unit, and I'd number it. And I'd say, you know what, unit 1 is maybe how to write a thesis statement or something like that. But then within that unit, there would also be assignments. And so what I would do as the teacher is I would name my assignments or my pages according to those units. So for instance, I'm going to go to this assignment here, and I'm going to edit so that I can change the name. And right now you can see that the title is just demo assignment. But if this is in the first module, I would probably put a 1 next to it. And then if it's the first assignment within the first module, it would be 1.1. And then if it's the second assignment in the first module, it would be 1.2, and so on and so forth. And using conventions like that throughout your entire course can help students figure out where to find things as you start adding a lot of content into that course. So for instance, if I had 10 modules and I told my student, hey, look, you're missing an assignment from when we talked about thesis statements, you're missing like the third or fourth assignment in that unit, they can find that unit first off and then find the assignment really quickly after that if I've named and organized those really well. So that's something to keep in mind. The other things that I want to highlight about modules is just like with any other element in Canvas, you need to publish your module before students can see it. So right now I published my module to kind of troubleshoot that drag and drop issue that I was running into. But if I click on this, I have 4 options. I can publish the module and everything inside of it. I can publish just the module, but not the things inside of it. I can unpublish the module and everything inside of it, or I can just unpublish the module. Publishing the module and everything inside of it makes it so that students can access everything. Publishing the module means that they can see that that unit exists, but they may or may not be able to see the content inside of it, depending on whether or not those individual pages and assignments have been published, which again, you can toggle on and off on the side right here. Now, that's a really quick overview of modules. We are really short on time, and I want to show you one last thing. So I'm going to pause on questions for the time being, but I do want to make it clear that you are welcome to stay on after the call to ask any questions that you might have. But I want to point out one more thing before we go. And that last thing is in my module. So you can see it says Unit 1. If I go all the way to the right, I have these 3 dots. And those 3 dots give me a variety of options. First off, I can duplicate my module. I can send my module to a colleague if I want to. I can copy my module to another course that I'm teaching if I want to. I can delete that module. I can assign that module to specific students. So maybe I only want student A, B, and C to see this module. I can just put in their names and then they're the only people who can access it. But today, what I want to do is I actually want to click on the edit button that's kind of hidden right now, but that edit button is right at the top. Once I click on that, you can see that I can change the name of my module. I can lock it like I pointed out before, but I also have the ability to add some requirements to my module, and this can be really powerful as well. So if I click on plus requirement, what I can do is I can say students have to complete all of the things inside of this module, And then if I wanted to, I could even force students to move through those elements sequentially. That means that students will not be able to open up this demo assignment until after they have clicked on and opened up everything above that demo assignment. Now, below that, you can see that I can set requirements for specific items inside of my module. So for the September 4th demo page, they have to view the item before they can move on. And then I'm going to add even another requirement, and I'm going to say for this assignment, not only do they have to view it, but maybe they have to submit the assignment before they move on. Or maybe they need to score at least 3 out of 4 on the assignment before they can move on. And then once you've set those requirements, Canvas is going to force students to hit some of those thresholds before the rest of the content opens up. Now, again, there are pros and cons to this. You're preventing students from accessing later content if you do this. So bear that in mind, but sometimes that can be a helpful strategy to use. Additionally, I'm going to hit save on this. And then I'll hit continue. That just means that I do, in fact, want to apply all of those settings to my module. But then I'm going to edit the settings for my second module, because as the second module, you can see that it also has this other option that appears, which is prerequisites. Now, that didn't appear in my first module because it's the first module in the course. But after the first module, what you can do is you can set a prerequisite for a module that simply says students need to complete all of these modules or this module before this module will open up for them. And that's essentially what a prerequisite will do for them. Now I'm going to remove that prerequisite and just hit save here. And then I want to apologize for having to move so quickly through that last part. Sorry for my poor pacing today, but it's about 3 o'clock. So what I want to do now is I want to kind of wrap up and just say today we've talked about content, we've talked about organizing things into modules. We'll talk a little bit more about modules next time. But at this point, if you need to go, thank you so much for being here. We'll meet again next week with a little bit more content, and I'll explain where we're going next week once you jump back in. But for those who have questions, and there might be a couple of you who do, feel free to stay on the call. Otherwise, though, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And we're going to go ahead and end the recording at this point so that you can ask any questions that may apply specifically to you.